Welcome to the Court of Honor celebrating 4 Eagle Scouts from Troop 719. I now call upon Nathan Hudson to conduct our flag ceremony.
Please rise for the presentation of the colors. Color Guard, advance. Color Guard, halt. Post the colors. Scout salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Scouts, please join me in the Scout Oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Scout law: a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. 2. Please be seated. Thank you for coming to the Special Troop 719 Court of Honor.
Eagle Honor Guard, escort the Eagle candidates to their seats. I now call on Mr. Hudson, Troop 719 Scoutmaster, who will give the 100 speech.
Troop 719, founded and sponsored by the Men's Club of St. Patrick Catholic Church, has provided local boys with the opportunity to participate in the Boy Scout program for more than 50 years. Today, we mark another proud occasion for Scouting and for the Troop 719 family, the climax of a goal for which these 4 young men have worked very hard. Andrew, Jonathan, Patrick, Joey, your accomplishments are remarkable, but this is also a special day for the entire troop and their families. Many boys aspire to the rank of Eagle, yet few attain it. The achievement demands intense desire and sheer persistence. It is not just coincidence that the armed services and many great corporations want to know on their applications, are you an Eagle Scout? For they have learned that such a man is 1 in 1,000. Eagle Scouts have walked on the moon, served as President of the United States, won Pulitzer Prizes, created Academy Award-winning films, and perhaps most importantly, become leaders in their communities and influence new generations of Scouts. West Point finds that 71% of the Eagle Scouts will pass the rigorous program. The next closest leadership level that achieved West Point graduation was serving as sports team captain, but only 35% of those succeeded. Most of you are aware of the daunting numbers each Scout faces. Barely half of all Scouts ever make it to first class. Yet after that point, a Scout must earn 21 merit badges and perform many hours of service to achieve the Eagle rank. Of any 100 boys who become Scouts, statistics show that 30 will drop out in the first year. And perhaps this may be regarded as a failure, but later in life, most remember their Scouting years with respect. Each of the 100 will learn something from Scouting. Many will find their future vocation through merit badge work and Scouting contacts. Almost all will develop hobbies that will add interest throughout the rest of their lives. At least 1 in that 100 will use the training he learned in Scouting to save another person's life, and many will credit it with saving their own. 4 of the 100 will reach the rank of Eagle, and at least 1 will later say that he values his Eagle badge above his college degree. Only 1 in 4 boys in America will become an Eagle Scout, but it is interesting to know that of the leaders of this nation in business, religion, and politics, 3 out of 4 were Scouts. So today we honor 4 Eagle Scouts. We know the things these 4 Scouts have accomplished, and imagine what they will do in the future.
We would now like to ask Father Joseph to present an opening prayer.
Please stand. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life, life itself, for families, for friends. We thanks for the parents of these young men that complete their journey and begin a new journey as Eagle Scouts. We ask your blessing upon them. Watch over them, keep them always close to you. We give thanks for family and friends that support us on our journey. We continue to ask the blessings on this afternoon on all we do. May they continue to inspire us to truly live the lessons we learn as Scouts. Be respectful, to be honorable, be loyal, be trustworthy. Support one another. We learn what it means to be together as a team, especially the team that you called us as the body of Christ. May we continue to be reflecting in our lives. We truly are followers of Christ, and one with all our brothers and sisters in Christ. We ask your blessing and your grace. Together we pray the prayer Jesus our brother taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Or lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. This is one word. Always, if I get together, especially at these ceremonies, all of the lessons they learn are truly valuable tools for priesthood. I always try to invite you to think about that as part of your journey. I'm not drafting you, but keep that in your prayers. God has called each one of us to a different way of serve him. May that be an option for you. God bless you, and congratulations.
Thank you, Father. And now for the scouting invocation.
White candle, like the white of our flag, is for purity, cleanliness of purpose, thought, and deed. The blue candle, like the blue of our flag, is for loyalty and faith, like the eternal blue of the heavens. By the authority vested in us, we declare this Eagle Court of Honor to be duly open.
Will Mr. Yule, Troop Eagle Advancement Coordinator, please come forward for the examination of readiness?
After attaining the rank of Life Scout, the Eagle candidate must achieve the following goals while remaining active in the troop. The first goal, hold a position of responsibility, such as Senior Patrol Leader, Assistant Senior Patrol Leader, or other leadership position, for a period of at least 6 months. Each of these scouts have held one or more of these positions. Requirement 2, show Scout spirit by being a role model, by living the Scout oath, the Scout law, by helping to bring out the best in others as a reflection of his own character and attitude. 3, acquire a total of 21 merit badges, 10 more than the number required for the rank of 10 more than the rank of life. 13 of the 21 must be from the list of Eagle required merit badges. Number 4, plan, develop, and give leadership to others in a service project helpful to a religious institution, a school, or their community. The Scout's Eagle advisor, the Scoutmaster, the troop committee, and the district representative must approve the Scout's plan before the Scout may begin. Number 5, and the final, the candidate must partake in a Scoutmaster conference and an Eagle Board review. An Eagle Board review is like a life board review, but much longer and in much more depth. I reviewed the work, achievements, the leadership activities, and the service projects of these young men. Together with our Scoutmaster, members of the Eagle Board Review, and the district representative, we have determined that all 4 Scouts qualify admirably for the Eagle rank.
Will the Eagle Honor Guard please escort the new Eagles to the platform?
The first obligation of an Eagle Scout is honor. The white in the Eagle badge represents honor, and it is this sacred foundation of his character. Character is not what you think of yourself, but what you are, deep inside. It is what you do to reflect credit upon your home, family, church, school, friends, and yourself. Always let the white of the badge remind you to live with honor.
The second obligation of an Eagle Scout is loyalty. The blue in the Eagle badge represents loyalty, your loyalty, for without it, character lacks direction. Regardless of how rough the road, how difficult the task, or how impossible the situation, you must remain loyal to your cause and purpose. It is the sense of belonging, being a part of a team, and working together with others. It is standing by your work, your promises, and your pledges. It is also the feeling you give others, knowing that they can count on you. Let the blue of this badge remind you to remain loyal.
The third obligation of an Eagle Scout is courage. The red of the Eagle badge represents courage. It gives you your character, force, and strength. If you have faith in God and your fellow man, you are able to face each day unafraid and strive to share in the work at hand. You should do your part in all things, regardless of danger, adversity, or hardship. Let the red of the badge remind you of courage. The fourth obligation is responsibility. It is represented by the Scout motto, "Be prepared." It means that you are always in a state of readiness, both in mind and body. So if you will be able to face danger and help others to the best of your ability. It also means that you have been trained for emergencies and that you are confident in your ability to do your duty as Eagle Scouts.
The fifth and final obligation is that of service. This obligation is represented by the eagle. You must extend a helping hand to those who still toil up the scouting trail, just as others helped you achieve your goal. It means that the daily good turn must continue. You must strive to protect the weak and defend the helpless. The eagle also indicates that you are about to be an elite member of an esteemed group of world citizens. With this honor comes the knowledge that any discredit which falls upon you also befalls your your brother Eagle Scouts.
Will anyone here who has achieved the rank of Eagle Scout please stand and be recognized? Please come forward and stand in support behind our new Eagles. I now call upon Mr. Hudson again to administer the Eagle Pledge.
Andrew, Jonathan, Patrick, and Joey, I charge you to enter this Eagle Scout Brotherhood holding ever before you, without reservation, the ideals of honor and service. By repeating the Eagle Scout Pledge before your fellow members, you will affirm your status as Eagle Scouts. When you pledge yourself on your sacred honor, using the same words which close the Declaration of Independence, you will be sealing your eternal loyalty to the code of the Eagle Scout. Eagle Scouts, are you willing to accept these obligations, responsibilities, and the honor of the Eagle Scout badge? Yes, with the help of God and my fellow Eagle Scouts, I am.
Yes, with the help of God and my fellow Eagle Scouts, I am.
The Eagle Scouts candidates will now take the Eagle Scout Pledge. As the candidates take this pledge, for the first time, will those Eagle Scouts from the audience also reaffirm your pledge? Will each of you please give the Scout sign and repeat after me in unison? I reaffirm my allegiance to the three promises of the Scout Oath.
I reaffirm my allegiance to the three promises of the Scout Oath.
I thoughtfully recognize and take upon myself the obligations and responsibilities of the rank of Eagle Scout.
The obligations and responsibilities of the rank of Eagle Scout.
On my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty to God.
On my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty to God.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to my country.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to my country.
On my honor, I will do my best to make my training an example.
On my honor, I will do my best to make my training an example.
And make my rank and influence strongly count.
And make my rank and influence strongly count.
For better scouting and for better citizenship.
For better scouting and for better citizenship.
In my troop.
In my troop.
In my community.
In my community.
And in my contact with other people.
In my contact with other people.
Regardless of race, color, or creed.
Regardless of race, color, or creed.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
Congratulations, Eagles. Eagles, you may return to your seats. Eagle Honor Guard, please escort the candidates' parents to the stage. Eagle Scouts, please join your parents on the stage. Scouts, it is with distinct honor and pleasure that we present you with the Eagle Award. Mothers, will you please pin your son's shirt? No one will ever know the unnumbered acts of self-sacrifice and helpfulness from the mothers of these Eagle Scouts, which have led us to this afternoon. As the symbol of what these mothers have made possible, the court now asks each new Eagle to present to his mother a miniature Eagle pin. In recognition of fatherly advice and guidance along the trail to Eagle, I will now ask each of the fathers of these Eagle Scouts to present to his sons the Eagle Scout neckerchief and slide. Your father has stood by you over the years and has offered his encouragement and assistance. As a symbol of what he has contributed to your attainment of this award, the court now asks you to present him with the Eagle Dad pin. By the authority vested in me by the National Court of Honor of the Boy Scouts of America, it is my privilege and pleasure to pronounce you an Eagle Scout. May the oath you have taken remain true in your hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, Scouts and Scouters, I present to you Eagle Scouts Andrew Brannon, Jonathan Fira, Joseph Fowler, and Patrick Labriere. Eagle Scouts, you may now move your tags up on the Troop 719 advancement board. Eagle Scouts, you may now return to your seats, and we now have a video presentation.
Walk with me, Susie, through the park and by the tree. We will rest upon the ground and look at all the bugs we found. Safely walk to school without a sound. Safely walk to school without a sound. Here we are, no one else. We walk to school all by ourselves. There's dirt on our uniforms from chasing all the ants and worms. We clean up and now it's time to learn. We clean up and now it's time to learn. Numbers, letters, learn to spell. Nouns and books and show and tell. Playtime we will throw the ball. Back to class, through the hall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. We don't notice any time pass. We don't notice anything. We sit side by side in every class. Teacher thinks that I sound funny, but she likes the way you sing. Tonight I'll dream while I'm in bed, when silly thoughts go through my head about the bugs and alphabet. When I wake tomorrow I'll bet that you and I will walk together again. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Once I rose above the noise and confusion, where it looks beyond this illusion, I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high. Though my eyes could see, I still was a blind man. Though my mind could think, I still was a madman. I hear the voices when I'm dreaming. I can hear them say, carry on, wayward son. There'll be peace when you are gone. Lay your weary Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this task and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Gentlemen, we're going to do something a little bit different this year in this Court of Honor. Would our newest Eagles of 719 please stand up? Gentlemen, please picture yourselves in a circle. Now answer this question. Are you happy?
Yes.
In the immortal words of Rocket the Raccoon, we're all standing in a circle, like a bunch of, I'll let you fill in the blanks. Please take a seat. Andrew Hey Joey Brannon. Andrew, I don't know if you realize this, but you're a true Troop 719 legacy. Your uncle, Daniel Janik, is a Troop 719 Eagle Scout. That's pretty special. I've never come across that before. Danny, as I knew him, was the smartest kid at St. Pat's. You got big shoes to fill, son. You know, we teach these boys, especially in the context of the Eagle Scout merit badges, life skills. One of those life skills is planning ahead. I have to congratulate Andrew in that I'd have to say that when he contacted me week before last at summer camp, that was probably the furthest out before the Court of Honor that I've ever been asked. So I asked him, why are you asking me? He said, well, Mr. Farah, you have lots of experience at this. I'm sure you'll do a good job. Wasn't sure what to take by that, so I asked him, is there anything in particular that you want me to talk about? He goes, no, I'm sure you'll do a good job. So I said, so I can say anything I want. Pause. Yeah. So I've known, Andrew, I've known your mom's family since about the time, since my age of when you started Cub Scouts. So I thought about that. How far back do I remember Andrew? The Cub Scouting years. What do I recall? Hey, Joey. Hey, Joey. Hey, Joey. Hey, Joey. I'm like, does he kind of have like a tick? You know? Or is this Joey fella deaf? And then I found out it was neither of those two. It was actually Joey Fowler, and Joey Fowler was too cool for school and ignoring Andrew. Andrew, if he doesn't respond to you the second time, blow it off, move on. Second thing I remember about Andrew, he absolutely loved the Cub Scout fireside programs. Loved doing the programs. Loving being out there and doing the play on sentence thing where everybody kind of added a word and kept going and kept going. And what was that other thing you loved being the lead in? The oh great zaboomafoo. You know, you smelled the shoe and threw it into the woods. What was that called? Yeah, okay. So then we moved into the Boy Scouting years, and I've never seen a boy so determined. And it was very clear from the get-go. Andrew, you were eager to learn. You were ready to act, and you were anxious to lead. And by lead, you wanted to run with the big boys. You wanted to be a big scout. You wanted to be at the top of the food chain. So I thought about that a little bit. How about Andrew's eagerness to learn? I remember a time, I believe Andrew was working on his second class cooking. We were at Weeblo's Woods. And in second class cooking, you've got to cook a breakfast. Well, it was clear that Andrew had no clue how to cook. But I, in very short order, found out how magical he was with food. He was an absolute magician. I've never seen a boy take, what is it, the 2 18-packs of eggs, right? 36 eggs, 3 dozen eggs. Never seen a boy take 3 dozen eggs and turn it into about maybe 6 or so scrambled eggs. Quite a learning experience for me. And he had a great learning experience later on that weekend as well, because he learned from his mom, no doubt, just how you scrub 2.5 dozen eggs off the bottom of a pot. Never seen that pot ever look that clean. I'm sure words like elbow grease, put your back into it, were utilized in that process. However, Andrew's skills improved dramatically. As a den chief for his younger brother Daniel's den, we were out at a Cub Scout camp out. I had all my den chiefs, and we were doing dessert for everyone. So I looked at the boys and said, okay, we're doing Dutch oven cobblers, we're doing a cheesecake, we're doing this, right? Daniel, never done it before, made a half blueberry, half raspberry cheesecake in a Dutch oven perfectly. It was fantastic. So that's Andrew's willingness to learn, ready to act. He couldn't wait to act. What was the name of that fireside program thing that you did? The Great Zaboomafoo, right? It was oh great, whenever you smelled the shoe and pitched it in the woods. Patrick? No, it's not a shoe mystic. But no matter what Andrew was doing, no matter where we were, no matter how his legs were dangly, wrapping around and screwing around, you'd say, "Hey, Daniel." "Yes, sir." "Yes, Mr. Farrer. I need you." Boom. He'd take care of it. He was done. He was ready to act. Anxious to lead. It was very clear in Andrew's very first 2 summer camps how anxious he was to run with the big boys. First summer camp, I don't know how many times he got knocked down. I don't remember who it was, but where are the Fulkerson boys? One of the Fulkerson boys, I remember, shaking him by the ankles, trying to get loose change out. A lot of crying, a lot of angst, but undeterred, Andrew moved on. Second summer camp, he kept at it. Now, for those of you that know Greg Fowler, Greg was our scoutmaster back then. And Greg is what you would call a scoutmaster, in my opinion. Greg knew how to talk to the scouts. He knew how to motivate the scouts. He knew how to get the scouts to get the job done. And most importantly, from my perspective, he knew how to make fun of the scout without the scout knowing that he was being made fun of to his face. So Greg knows how to talk to people. He knows how to talk to kids. In the matter of the first 72 hours of summer camp, Greg had to give 6 speeches. 3 speeches twice. First, older boys, you're leaders in the troop. You can't thrash the kid to the ground. Second speech, okay guys, BSA has a no hazing policy. I know Daniel keeps getting into your stuff. Leave him alone. Andrew, excuse me. Third speech, okay guys, cut it out. Now, I said he had to give the same speech twice, 6 speeches in all. Well, he had to give the same speech to Andrew every time, which took a whole lot longer because every time it was like, Andrew, stop crying, stop crying. It didn't hurt that one of the Fulkerson boys was shaking you by your ankles. But undeterred, he moved on, and moved on he did. I love to give my favorite story of the scouts' time in the pack and in the troop. And I thought about that long and hard with Andrew, and it dawned on me that there's a story from his time in the past that really explained who he was as a scout and why he's done what he's done and how he's done it. So if you'll bear with me, I'd like to tell you this story. When Andrew was, I want to say, a second-year scout, the troop had elected to do the climbing camp out, and Jim Hudson, our current scoutmaster, it was his very first camp out with the troop. So we went out to, can't remember the name, Sid Richardson. And Jim and I woke up. We had all these boys. We knew nothing about climbing, but we had an adult who was BSA trained. He asked for volunteers, and Jim and I, not very smart, raised our hands, said we'd volunteer to do it. He showed us everything we had to do, from tying the knots to motivating the boys. These boys had to do something like 5 rappels and 3 climbs. And Jim and I, took in the information. We tested the guy that was teaching us to make sure that he knew what he was talking about. I mean, I personally mistied the knot 3 times just to make sure that he knew how to tie the knot properly. Right. Anyhow, first up in line, we're doing the rappels. First up in line was Andrew. He was ready to act. And let me tell you something. It is not a natural thing to go perpendicular on a wall backwards and trust that those three boys have got the line, right? Nothing's bad going to happen. Luckily, Mr. Hudson, foreshadowing that he was going to be our scoutmaster someday, coaxed him, motivated him, put him at ease. 30 minutes later, Andrew took his first step. Now, one might think that that was the story. That's what defined Andrew as a scout. No, I'm not finished with the story. So Jim and I led these boys through some, I don't know how many kids we had, 30 some odd kids, led them through this. And at the very end of the end of the day, Jim looks at me and says, "We're done." I said, "What?" I said, "All of them have done it. We're finished." I said, "Great. Jim, do me a favor." He's like, "What?" I said, "I've never done this before, and I've always wanted to rappel. Would you mind belaying me?" He said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So he hooked me up. We were all set up, nodded at him, took a step back, didn't say a word to him, leapt, right? He's like, "Warning!" Anyway, I one-hopped it, got to the bottom, and who was there? Young Mr. Andrew Brannick. "Wow, Mr. Fear, that was so cool." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You must do it all the time." "No, first time." "No way." Very incredulously looking. "No way." I said, "Yeah. Haven't you ever seen the movies where, the special forces is jumping out of the helicopter, they're rappelling down, they got the M16s just blaring away." Young Andrew looks down and says, "My mother doesn't let me watch those kind of movies." Fear of his mom has driven Andrew to this point in his life. Andrew, there's nothing wrong with that. Fear is a healthy thing. As I said, it's very unnatural to go backwards off a cliff. That fear will serve you well, right? It's always that understanding of, do I have the knowledge? Am I educated on what I'm about to do, right? Do I know enough? Am I ready to act? And am I anxious to lead others? Okay? Those three things you've got nailed. You're ready to act. You're ready to learn. You're ready to lead. You've heard my story before. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, especially when your mom is around. Cheerful, thrifty, brave, especially in front of your mother. Clean, especially when your mom is around. And reverent. I look forward to the future that you create. Thank you for asking me to speak on your behalf.
Would Greg Fowler please come up?
I get the privilege of talking a little bit about Jonathan. And I'll tell you, I think my favorite thing about Scouts is watching the change that happens from the time that they're this tall to the time that they're this tall. And just seeing what a difference these years make, this program makes in confidence and ability and leadership and all of those kind of characteristics. So I'll tell you a little bit about Jonathan. When Jonathan entered into the troop, I was a scoutmaster, and here comes Jonathan, and painfully shy. This is a kid he had to be the quietest kid that I've ever encountered, and he shows up, and we're at summer camp, his first year, and there's a Troop 719 tradition for first-year scouts, that they all get to do a skit together, and it's done at the very tail end of the camp. And I don't want to give a lot away to anybody that may be coming down the path a little bit later, but suffice it to say, each kid has a role to play and has some lines. My son Jeff was the SPL at that camp, and he knew Jonathan was quiet. And so intentionally, they got together, and as they were figuring out the parts, they created a part for Jonathan that was It was one word. I don't even remember what the word was. It doesn't really matter anymore, but I can tell you it was one word. And we went to actually do the skit, and it came time for Jonathan to do his one word, and he just, oh, it's hard. Oh, it's hard. And we're like, Jonathan, come on, you can do it. You can do it. You just got to say this. And I would go up, and he could say it really quiet to me. And then we'd say, he's like, all right, you got it. And then we go back again, and it would come time, and oh, what's the word? Come on, you got this. And just tough. We roll forward a little bit, and I can't remember if it was had to be probably your Tenderfoot Scoutmaster Conference, Tenderfoot second class, something like that. And I remember that we did it at a winter camp at Trevor East Jones, because I can remember sitting on the platform with you. And I remember asking some really complicated questions like, what's your favorite thing in Scouts? And Jonathan just looks at me. I'm like, okay, you like something, right? Yeah. and so we went on. The story gets better though as we roll through time. There are a number of other traditions. These boys are all wearing their Order of the Arrow sashes, and there are a number of ceremonies that get done. And one of the ones we take great pride in at Troop 719 is crossing Cub Scouts over from the Cub Scout pack to Troop 719. And there are 4 characters in this, and probably the main. The main character of that skit is Alawat Sakima, who is he's the chief and runs the whole show, and that was Jonathan. 3-4 years after the year that he had one word, couldn't get one word out. And then we got paragraphs out of him in a skit in front of the whole troop and all of the moms and dads, and welcoming all the new kids into the troop. So it's been wonderful to see you grow. I got to work with Jonathan a number of other times. We talked a lot about faith during your confirmation process, and just have seen you grow. I've hiked a lot of trails with you. We've done a lot of camping. We've done warm weather camping. We've done cold weather camping. We've done warm and cold weather camping on the same trip, and it's been a pleasure to work with you and a pleasure to see you grow. I as Scoutmaster, when I got to Eagle Scoutmaster conferences, I didn't get to do this with you, but I used to ask a question about what's the big deal in being an Eagle Scout. You did a lot of work to get here. You did a lot of merit badges to get here. But if I go out and I ask the general public, like, what's an Eagle Scout, they have something in mind, but they don't know. And I would posit that they don't care a lot about the merit badges that you did. They know about some of them. They know about the first aid ones. They generally, I think, suspect that Eagle Scouts can tie knots. I'm not sure if you can tie knots or not, but the general public kind of thinks that you can do first aid and you can tie knots and you can camp. And that's what they know about Eagle Scouts. But they also know that Eagle Scouts are great leaders, and that it took a lot to get there. And I think they know that because of what other Eagle Scouts have done. So my challenge to you is to take forward what you've learned here and the leadership lessons that you've learned and go apply them. Do little things in your community. Do them with great love. Build a community around you, because I know that you can. And I'm proud of you. And congratulations.
Would Melissa Steinmetz please come up?
I was very surprised when Joey asked me to speak about him. And I want to say one quick thing. Andrew finished his project a very long time ago. And because he is everything that a scout is supposed to be, and especially loyal, he waited. So, just that one thing. Okay. I was very surprised that Joey asked me to speak about him and extremely excited. I've known Joey for quite a while. I was trying to remember, but I think I met him in his 31st week, so before he was actually supposed to be born, because Debbie allowed me to drive her to Baylor and to meet Joey. And it has been a privilege ever since to know him and to see him grow up and just become more and more self-reliant and really wonderful. So going to the end, when it came to Joey's Eagle project, he had a really good idea. He pitched it. No one was going for it. And that wasn't Joey's fault at all. And so he kept trying. And his Eagle project benefited Lake Highlands High School, the tech theater department. He built an amazing podium with his tech theater director and with his class. I had nothing to do with it. I realized there is an acknowledgement in the program. I actually didn't do anything. Joey did it all. He figured it out for himself. And that tells the most about Joey. So going back to when he was little, we've had lots of wonderful experiences together, going to the zoo, family birthdays. In scouting, we got to hike Philmont together. Again, illustrative of Joey's character. He had a challenge at Philmont, but he didn't let it get him down. He really was in a lot of pain. He took a little rest, and he came back. And what impresses me the most, even now, is that he really was positive the whole time. So, yay. I'm going to look at my little paper. Okay, so 2 other quick things. One of the things I appreciate also about Joey, and Debbie will second this, he never fails when he sees me to give me a hug and to say, "How are you? How was your day?" Not very many teenagers do that because they look inward. Joey manages to look outward and to notice the people around him, and I think that's pretty remarkable. And one final thing, because I said I would be very brief, is that Joey is very caring toward his family, remarkably so. In the past few years, many times I've talked to Debbie and she's said, "Oh, Joey and I went to a movie." Again, not that many teenagers would choose to take time away from their friends to spend time with their family, but Joey always does. So I can't wait to see what he does. It will probably be in neuroscience, which blows me away. But whatever he does, I think he will do it with a lot of care for other people around him, with an awareness of the larger world, and with a deep love and commitment to his family. So thank you for letting me talk about you.
You remember this hat? You remember this hat? Well, all right. Missed it on that one. So Patrick was more of the mean on when he asked someone to give testimony on his behalf. And I asked him same questions I asked Andrew. Told him I was very honored. Asked him if there was anything that that he had in mind that I should speak about. He said no. So I said, so I get to say anything I want. Big pause. Sure. I met Patrick on our very first Tiger Scout Go See It. Patrick, your dad was our den leader. He set it up. Do you remember what we went and did? We went to go see the traveling miniature Vietnam War Memorial. It was in Garland. I remember that day perfectly. I remember you and Jonathan talking. I remember thinking, I know he's speaking English, but I haven't a clue what he means by what he's saying. And that pretty much defined things for a long time with Patrick. As our Cub Scouting career moved on, your dad became the Cub Master. I became the assistant den leader. And as I recall, you tried to quit several times. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way to call Patrick out. Actually, I mean that in a way that shows that I had a lot of learning to do as an adult and as an adult leader. Because Patrick's mom would tell Patrick's dad, Patrick wants to quit. Patrick's dad would go back to Patrick and say, why do you want to quit? So I'm not having fun. Why are you not having fun? We're doing too much stuff. What do you mean by too much stuff? Mr. Fear makes us do a bunch of stuff. So I am as pleased as I can possibly be that you're up on that podium today. And as we moved through the Cub Scouting years, I started figuring out a little bit more about Patrick. Patrick is very creative. You know how I learned that? The very first time that I actually understood what it was that he was saying, what it meant, was what I affectionately called the Ode to a Toad. O Tomla Toad, why are you lying on the road? You used to be so green and fat, and now you're one great big splat. O Tomla Toad, why are you lying on the road? You used to eat a fly or two, and now the flies are eating you. Patrick and Paul went on for some 18 verses of this. These are the first words I actually understood that he was saying, and I still remember them. So he moved on into the troop, and Patrick really showed that he was starting to communicate and that I could understand him. Patrick, are you coming to the camp out this weekend? No. You know we're working on such and such merit badge. Yes. I mean, if you come to the camp out, you're going to knock it out. That's an Eagle required merit badge. I know. How come you're not coming? I don't want to. Patrick figured out how to communicate, and he also figured out that he was going to do things when he wanted to do them. Patrick went to the Bechtel Summit, right? The troop didn't, right? National Jamboree, isn't that right? Right? Patrick went to summer camp in the swamps of Louisiana, right? The troop didn't. Patrick had his own path, right? Your mind works in a way that makes sense for you, and you've produced phenomenal results doing that. I couldn't be more proud. You are the brother of an Eagle Scout. You're the son of an Eagle Scout. That is quite a legacy. I look forward to what you choose to create in your life. Just remember, no matter what it is, and whatever challenge comes in front of you, remember the Eagle Charge. Remember those simple words. On my honor, I will do my best. If you remember that, you will always find the path through to it. You will always be proud of yourself. You will always hold your head up high. Thank you, Patrick.
Now the new Eagle Scouts would each like to make some comments.
Yes, sir.
I cannot imagine a court of honor for Jonathan, Patrick, Joey, and I going any other way than this. It's just a perfect representation of our history together. We failed to have an MC. Well, we did have an MC, not the one we had planned. Our Eagle Honor Guard was one person. It was supposed to be 4. You know, things just work out that way. But I actually did prepare some things to say, and I think I might have been the only one. So first of all, I just have a very long list of people that I need to thank who helped me get here. There is no way to become an Eagle Scout on your own. So just first, I've divided up into sections so I don't forget anyone. First, for my project, I'd like to thank Mr. St. Jenks. He was my Eagle advisor. He guided me through the entire process of getting my project done, getting all the paperwork turned in. Mr. Lucido, who helped me design the project. It's the little landscaping out at the front of the school right there. Mr. Green let us borrow his trailer for part of the project. He also gave some advice. He has experience with what we were doing. I'd like to thank Mrs. Hendry and St. Patrick's School for letting me do the project. Everyone who came out to help with it. I'd also like to thank all my Scoutmasters throughout the year. Mr. Fowler, Mr. Gout, Mr. Hudson, the mini Scoutmaster conferences where you bared with me throughout all of my ramblings. Other leaders, Mr. Fira, Mrs. Steinmetz, Mr. Yaley, and Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. Just individuals who've provided a lot of guidance and been there for me throughout the time. I'd also like to thank Joey, Jonathan, and Patrick, the various SPLs I've had, everyone in my patrol, and my parents, because I am, as Mr. Fira said, afraid of my mother. And of course, I'd like to thank all of the people who I've inevitably forgotten. Again, there's no way to do this on your own. But now the fun part, the part that I've been waiting for over a year. So, on the script for the ceremony, this is labeled a short speech or comments regarding my scouting career. I was also supposed to wait a short time between getting that email and having my ceremony, so I'm taking a few liberties with this. There really is no way to sum up my 7 years of scouting experience into a short speech. There's just been so much filled with it. So I'm just going to focus on one little thing, which I think can be seen in many different places. Even if you've had no affiliation with the Scouts, if this Court of Honor is your first look into what we do here, you've probably heard the phrase, be prepared, before. It's the Scouting motto, it's everywhere. When people think of the Scouts, be prepared is something that you hear. It's just all over the place. And I really hope, because I've thought this for a long time, that the goal of Scouting is to prepare young people for the rest of their lives. But I'd never really thought too much about the phrase, be prepared. It's just something that gets said so many times that it kind of lost its meaning. And it wasn't until last summer when I went to Northern Tier that I really started to think about the phrase. My interpreter there, Lucas Wade, said something to me one night, a little after we had dinner. He said, be prepared can have many different meanings. For example, if you know it's going to rain on a camp out, it can mean bring your rain gear. It can also mean be prepared to get wet. And I think my brother Daniel learned this lesson very well at summer camp this year. He insisted he did not need to bring any extra shoes. They're not going to get muddy. It's not going to rain. It can't rain at summer camp. It'll never happen. First day, it rained. Went out there for family night. It rained. Daniel, I hope you're taking notes. You've only been in Scouts for about a year now, a little more than that. So just some advice. Be prepared to get wet. It's going to happen a lot more. But some other meanings of be prepared, because I've got a lot of them. Now, I think Mr. Fira made it clear that I had some interesting experiences at my first few summer camps. I'd like to clarify one thing. David Fulkerson shaking me by my ankles. I deserved it, 100%. I deserved everything that those older Scouts gave me, because it wasn't my goal to be an annoying little brat. I really wanted them to like me. I did. I just had a long ways to go before that happened. And I did get there eventually, I think. Through many years of learning from a lot of experiences, I think that I've started to gain their respect. So the lesson here is be prepared to make some enemies and then be prepared to make amends with them. A few months later, still in my first year of Scouts, it was October, we had a cycling camp out. Luckily, only the first years went on this one. Nobody else wanted to, so I didn't have to worry about annoying anyone other than my patrol members, and they weren't big enough to pick me up. But after we were done cycling for the day, we all decided to go down to the lake right by our campsite and hop in. Yeah, this was October. So we got out a few hours later. I remember Mr. Gout was at that camp out, and we all went to him and we said, Mr. Gout, can we light a fire? He looked at us and he said, well, do any of you have your fireman chit? A fireman chit's a little piece of paper that says, oh, yes, you're permitted to light a fire. They give it to 11-year-olds. It's specifically designed so it's easy to lose. Luckily, I keep mine with me. So we got our fire. Daniel, are you paying attention? The lesson here is be prepared to get wet, but then be prepared to fix that problem. Now, for the next few years, there weren't really any big moments that I could think of. The next huge one was Philmont, which I maintain to this day has been the greatest experience of my scouting career and possibly my life. Any scout who hasn't been to Philmont, you should go sometime. It's incredible. But while I was there, it wasn't always that way. It didn't seem so great. It rained for a couple hours in the afternoon every single day of our trek. And on the third to last day, it was the longest day we had. It rained a lot. It hailed a lot. And we were walking on this road, which would quickly turned into just mud. I was walking a little ways ahead of everybody else, probably just a couple yards. And I took a step and slipped in the mud, and I fell straight down on my side. And then I got back up, and I took another step, and instantly fell again. Didn't even make it a yard, fell twice. We were so close to the end of the trek, and yet in that moment, I was falling apart. I was covered in mud on the entire side, and I didn't know if I could get back up that second time. Now, luckily, I was ahead of everyone, so they couldn't see that I was starting to cry a little. But I got up. Now, it was mud, so be prepared to get wet. But, more importantly, be prepared to fall, and then be prepared to get up. There are a ton of other moments that I have. I did so many things after that. I staffed winter camp, got wet. I went to sea base, got pretty wet. I did Philmont in the winter. I got wet. But the last thing I want to mention, I promise there's only one more, is from Northern Tier. It was the last big thing I did with the troop. That was last summer. Philmont, I said, was the greatest experience of my scouting career. Northern Tier was no doubt the most difficult. Not just physically. I would probably say that Philmont actually was more daunting physically, but Northern Tier was just mentally difficult. Because it seemed like every single day there was a new obstacle, something that just drove me insane. And after a few days, I didn't think I could take any more. I did not think I could get through Northern Tier. The mud, the weight of a canoe on your shoulders, I didn't know if I could do it. But I'm going to talk about one of the incredible experiences I had at Northern Tier. We just finished a very long, muddy portage, and we got to this lake on the other side of a hill, and the skies just opened up, storming. It was insane. And there were waves on the lake that were so big that we were told we couldn't actually cross without risking flipping over in the middle. And that would be a very dangerous situation. So what do? We had to get pretty far that day, and we had to cross this lake. We looked at the map, and there was another way we could go down at the southern end of the lake, which would add a few more kilometers to our trek, but we'd be going perpendicular to the waves, so they wouldn't tip us over. And our interpreter, Lucas Wade, who I mentioned earlier, had an idea. So he took us all out into the middle of the lake. We got all our canoes right up next to each other. You can see Nathan and Sammy nodding. So we had 4 canoes right next to each other. We pulled out this dining fly, basically a big tarp that we had for shelter when we camped. And we had the 2 people in the front corners of our 4-canoe block hold down ends. The other 2 ends we tied to paddles and had the people in the back stand in the back of the canoes and lift them up. And we used that storm that was preventing us from going across the lake to sail our canoes all the way down. So this time, just for all you scouts, and Daniel especially, because you're the youngest one here, be prepared to be amazed, to find unexpected things, and to just be shocked by all the incredible moments, the incredible opportunities. Like when I stood on top of the highest mountain in Philmont, and Joey used his phone to check what new video games were going to be released. Be prepared to face crazy problems, tackle them with crazy solutions, to see two young elk play fighting with each other while you're building an igloo in the middle of winter. Be prepared to see some crazy sunsets at Camp Constantine year after year. And hopefully to one day get your eagle. So just thank you, Troop 719, for all these incredible, amazing memories that I've had. It has been my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, Andrew, I did prepare a little. Only a little. So I'll start with my Scoutmasters. Mr. Fowler was indeed the first Scoutmaster I had in the troop. And I don't think I ever figured it out after that changed. Because for a while, and even to recently in my scouting career, I've still come to him to ask questions, if at all possible. Mr. Gout, who could not be here today, unfortunately, who I had originally asked to speak on my behalf, it took me a while to warm up to him, just to put it frankly, because I was still so used to talking to Mr. Fowler, who I had known my whole life. But that changed eventually. Northern Tier was probably the biggest turning point, because when you're out in the backwoods and lakes on the border of the US and Canada, there's not a whole lot you can do if you want to keep yourself sane and entertained. So I remember one night in particular, we had just made possibly an illegal dam crossing. Max remembers this. We had scaled a concrete dam to get into a lake that was on our maps, but I think there was something telling us we shouldn't be there. I don't know. The signs were ambiguous. We'll leave that. That was the night we spent with the beavers in our campsite, in our kitchen. Now, it was late for us, and I don't think we had a good track record with going to sleep. I don't know what time it was, but we were on a massive tangent about old TV shows, particularly Monty Python and The Goodies. And it just went on, and that was, I guess, the biggest moment I realized I was in the presence of like-minded people who I could just talk to, and it didn't matter. We were in the woods. And then when we did actually go to sleep, or try to, we could not, because the beavers were in our kitchen, slapping water, keeping us awake. And in the morning, somebody, I don't remember who it was, maybe it was Max, looks at something on the ground and I think picks it up and says, "Hey, Mr. Fira, what's this?" It was beaver poop. And now, Mr. Hudson. For the last Scoutmaster I've had in the troop, it was a different experience, I think, just because you were there the whole time, but I didn't really start dealing with you until I was much more older and not in the phase of constantly having to ask questions just to find out what was going on in the world. I would say you were the Scoutmaster I had the most mature interactions with, especially at summer camp. which is, and I think a lot of the scouts here can attest, the most strenuous time of a first-year scout's life. And somehow, on some days, it never gets better. There's always some challenge, but Mr. Hudson was always there with us, making sure everything turned out okay. And I've saved the longest story for the last for Mr. Fowler. Philmont, like Andrew said, was the greatest experience of my scouting career. Because it was us, again, in the woods, and we were a packless crew. It was tough. We picked, and you can read the papers that are on my table over there. I have the whole crew leader packet. Our trek says 89 miles. According to Mr. Fowler's best figuring, it was 110. But that was by our own choice. We wanted to do it because of Mr. Fowler. He definitely, I wouldn't say forced the idea, but he wanted to do it. It was fine. It was all fine. We just doubled our mileage on the second day. And there was a picture in the slideshow, I don't know how many of you saw it, of Mr. Fowler and Joey standing next to a sign that says Fowler's Pass. That's from that day. That was towards the end, I think, because it was getting dark. That was the day we chose to take a departure from our planned trek and hike the Tooth of Time, which is the big landmark close to base camp at Philmont. It's just a big rock jutting out the side of the hill. And there's a pretty good view from the top, I think. It was not on our itinerary. We just chose to do it. Our ranger didn't say no. The trail to get there is almost straight up, and it's just rocks. I think this is also the time he tried to get one of us to eat pine bark, because he said it tasted like vanilla. It was one of the greatest experiences of the opening of our Philmont trek, and it would not have happened without him. And his knowledge of the area was invaluable later on, and from the beginning in deciding what we wanted to do. And then there's the Pizza Bridge. So for those of you who do not know or have not yet been, there is a bridge in a valley or canyon where you cross from the southern region of Philmont to the northern region. And because this goes under the highway, it's an underpass in the highway. It's really a drainage ditch, I think. You can get cell signal, which means you can call into Cimarron and order a pizza from the pizza parlor. We did this. This was also the day Joey left us off the trail because it was time. And as we were eating, we realized that the Philmont people, the medical people, are on their way to pick up Joey. Now, they're probably going to ask him about his last meal. We're really not supposed to do this. Thankfully, they only asked when it was, not what it was, because he would have had to say pizza and a Dr. Pepper. And that day, leaving Joey was the hardest day, I think, for all of us. And there was our campsite Santa Claus, which had no water, even though we had been told very, very specifically in our briefing that there was indeed water. There wasn't. There hasn't been a creek there in at least 10 years. That was our only real freak out. Because we thought we were going to get up in the morning and not have enough water to make it to our next staff camp to fill up, Andrew in particular. But our adult leaders, my mom, Mr. Fowler, and Mr. Demarest, who's a leader from another crew who thankfully decided to join us. We wouldn't have been able to get on the trail at all without him. Just made sure we held it together, and it turned out okay. And to segue into the next part of what I wanted to say, it turned out okay is the story of our scouting careers. It may not have gone well all the time, but it turned out okay. Andrew said this Court of Honor is metaphor for our scouting careers. It's absolutely correct. All right, and I'll say a few more thank yous. My Eagle advisor, Mr. Thompson, and Mrs. Thompson for being so very supportive of the troop and all of us in our careers. There is not an event at the district level or even above that you cannot find Mr. Thompson taking pictures. I think I have seen more of his pictures than anyone else. And I would like to thank him in particular for being such a great help in getting my Eagle project rolling, because I was pretty uncertain at the beginning. And then, as far as my Eagle project is concerned, I would like to thank my mom. I'll leave it at that because the list is long and distinguished. Lake Highlands Military Moms and Knights of Columbus Council 799 for making the project possible at all. And all the merit badge counselors and my fellow scouts for making my experience the best it could be.
I prepared, I just forgot to print. Whoops. Okay, I just want to start the speech by saying whatever Mr. Fira said about me was not as bad as he made it sound. Unless it was, I don't know, I wrote the speech in the past. To continue this train of thought, any of the good things he mentioned were obviously understated. Especially the part where he mentioned how humble I am. He totally mentioned that, right? Okay, done with really unfunny jokes. So I have a lot of people to thank throughout this, but I don't know them all. Like, I know them, but not enough time. Well, there is time, I guess, but whatever. Rambling. I'd like to thank Mr. Yaley, Mr. Fira, Mr. Hudson, my mother and father. My mother and father, obviously, because they're my mother and father, they help me every day with everything. Mr. Yaley, because he helped move along all my really rushed Eagle stuff. Mr. Fira, I'll leave Mr. Fira for last. Mr. Hudson, because without Mr. Hudson, my Eagle project would have not been possible to finish because I forgot a tool that was kind of important, a drill bit, for making holes in birdhouses. Without that, the birdhouses would be boxes that have a slide open. Birds can't use those. For Mr. Fira, the reason I'm thanking him is because you're right. Whenever in Cub Scouts, I did feel like you made us do more work than I wanted to do, but it was still, we're supposed to do work. That's what we're supposed to do in Scouts, which so I pick you for a lot of things when I'm trying to get stuff done because I know you'll actually make me get it done. So I thank you for being a constant source of fear to get me to do stuff correctly. That's all. Bye.
like to make it clear, because the scout is truthful, I did not prepare anything, because this is already too long. Now, but I know who I need to thank off the top of my head. I know I need to thank my parents for always pushing me along and constantly asking me questions that'll help, like, hey, have you prepared your Eagle project? Is your Eagle project done? How long is it going to take to do your Eagle project? Have you done your Eagle project yet? I want to thank everybody sitting right in these first two rows, my friends and the guys who didn't get to come here. I'd like to thank them for making the Boy Scout experience what it was. I think that the best part about Boy Scouts are the friendships that you make along the way. I'd like to thank you all for coming. Again, specifically these guys, because we guilt-tripped them into being here. I'd like to thank I'd like to thank my Eagle advisor, Mrs. Farah, or Mrs. Simon, sorry. For even though you said that you didn't help, you did. You were always there if I needed to ask you a question about how to do the proposal or the project, the report, whatever. And it helped calm my nerves doing it. I'd like to thank Mr. Cruz, the Lake Highlands High School theater director, who couldn't be here today, but he really helped with. He helped me come up with the idea of the project and actually facilitating the whole thing. And finally, I'd like to thank Mr. Hudson for being the leader that every one of us, and I think you can ask everyone in my year, that you're the guy we could all come to. You're the adult that if we ever had a problem, a question about anything, we knew we could talk to you because we were close with you, and you would help us with anything. So thank you, Mr. Hudson. All right, that's it.
Will the troop chaplain please come forward for a closing prayer? Do we have a troop chaplain? All right, Mr. Huntress, please come forward for a closing prayer.
Before we say a prayer, I'd like to just congratulate my fellow brothers up here and their great accomplishments today. And that being said, I'm going to lead y'all in the Our Father as the closing prayer. So please take off all non-religious headgear, stand up. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I'd like to also pray that God keeps everyone here safe, especially our newly elected Eagle Scouts. Thank you. Amen. Y'all can all sit.
I now declare this Eagle Court of Honor closed. Please join us again in congratulating Andrew, Jonathan, Patrick, and Joey, Scouting's newest Eagle Scout.